And welcome, everybody. It has been 2 weeks since we have been here on the Gator Pit. Last week was very crazy. I had to make a hasty retreat from my previous residence. I do not have a primary residence or a permanent residence at the moment, but that's okay. And I may not have one until we get back from WrestleMania at this point, but we're only 2 weeks away. In 2 weeks from the day of this recording, Corey Santiago and I, with our good friend Reanimator, will be in San Jose, California, Intelligent City, having fun. And in fact, a big announcement happened today as to something that we are going to be going to next time in 2 weeks. I'm Nick Gator. With me, Corey Santiago.
I got a weird voice before we went on the air here, and it's just racking my brain right now.
From who?
I have no idea. It's some chick, and she says, I can't make out who she's looking for. She says it's somebody's mom, and she's just checking in to see if she's okay, but I have no idea who she's looking for.
Yeah, well, I've had some interesting texts and voicemails.
No, but she says my name. She knows it's me.
Oh, she's calling you.
Yeah, but I have no idea who this woman is.
She's calling you for information, but you don't know who she is. Are you going to call her back?
I don't think so.
Oh, but this sounds like very serious.
I know, but I mean, the problem is I can't figure out who's the name of the person she's looking for. Because she says, hi, Corey, it's blah. She sounds hammered, so I couldn't make it out, but it's somebody's mother.
It's a lot of stress.
I mean, I'm not that stressed about it.
And the words of Mark Wahlberg, say hello to your mother for me. And, of course, our producer, he is amplified to rock.
Hello to the people.
I don't even know where to begin. We have a lot of stuff to cover. It was not good to skip a show in the middle of WrestleMania season. And WrestleMania season is not even maybe the biggest thing that we've missed in the last couple of weeks. Why don't we start with what has possibly been the biggest WWE story since we've been on the air. There's been a lot of stories about Bill DeMott. For those of you who don't know who Bill DeMott is, if you're listening and don't know who he is, I don't know what to tell you. He was a wrestler in WCW under the name Hugh Morris. He was also General Rection in the Misfits in what they call the MIA?
Yeah.
The Misfits in Action.
Yeah.
And he has been the head trainer in NXT for a long time now. And a cloud has followed him around for years. There's not been one isolated incident where you have a disgruntled employee who was let go is coming back. But you've had several incidents with prominent people in the wrestling world, prominent independent wrestlers, people who have no reason to lie, have come forward and said that the things he does are bad, that they border on abuse, that he's done some terrible things, racial slurs, homophobic slurs, and Joey Ryan has been spoken out against him. Trent Beretta has spoken out against him. Plenty of other people, and most recently, a story had come out about some of the things that were going on, and the groundswell for his removal became far too great to bear. And in 2015, WWE is a publicly traded company, and you just can't do the things that you used to be able to do. Stu Hart and Bill Watts would not make it in 2015, but they would not have acted the way that they did in 2015. As a result, Bill DeMott has resigned, even though it's one of those resign or I'm going to fire you. And one story was that he was going to have an office position with the company. Now it seems like he's completely done with the company. And the artist formerly known as Albert or A-Train, Jason Albert, however, the Giant Bernard, has been named the head trainer for NXT. And this is a very unusual situation because you had people showing their support for DeMott, but it wasn't as much about supporting him as it was, well, I had it rougher than you guys did. And that was what Chris Jericho basically said. Chris Jericho didn't deny anything that had happened, but he said it was tougher for him in the dungeon. And of course it was. But of course, that was 25 years ago, 20 years ago. It's a different world. And like I said, WWE is a publicly traded company. The CEO's wife has run for the U.S. Senate twice unsuccessfully. And you cannot act like that. And there's no reason why Bill DeMott would have any special treatment. He's not irreplaceable. No one is irreplaceable. And some people are more or less irreplaceable than others. But I think this is a step in the right direction. I think it had to happen after everything that's been going on. And like I said, this wasn't one isolated incident. This has been a cloud that has been over everything for years now. And I think it's certainly the right thing to do. And it takes all of the issues away. It takes this big distraction away as we are into WrestleMania season. Corey, what are your thoughts about this whole Bill DeMott thing?
Well, to me, it was always just weird how they kept going to bat for this guy and would never really punish him in any way, because to me it was like, why is he so bulletproof in a way with this company where he's not this huge name in wrestling? He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not somebody who has dominated the wrestling world for 15 to 20 years. It's Bill DeMott. He had a cup of coffee in WCW and a brief stint in WWE, and that's it. Why is this guy continuously getting away with all these things that go down in developmental? I mean, it's like you said, if it was one person who came out and said something, then you're like, well, it's probably somebody who's just got sour grapes and they're just looking to get their name back out there and they're just bitter and all that. But, when you got multiple people coming out, dozens of people coming out and saying almost the exact same thing, then you got a big problem here. And I know this goes to the whole thing of, people aren't as tough as they were back then, but just because it was accepted back then still doesn't make it right. And I don't have a problem with being tough in training sessions and all that. If you want to rough somebody up a little bit and try and see if they really got what it takes, that's fine. Push somebody to their limits, that's cool. But throwing slurs out there, racial slurs, and one of the ones that I was just like, come on, you got to be kidding me. When one of the guys had a concussion and DeMott hit him over the head the next day, I was like, are you kidding me? What does that do? How does that make you tougher, or see if you have what it takes to be in the wrestling business? That's just being a dickhead. So,
and what happens if, God forbid, that guy had died or something?
Right.
And all of a sudden, is that really what WWE wants? Do they really want state investigators, law enforcement, and the media to get a hold of something like this? Of course not.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. I mean, I always thought that, watching Al Snow on Tough Enough, I thought he was a good example of being tough on guys and the girls, and pushing them, getting mean with them, but then at the end of the day showed that he did it all because he wanted to see them all succeed. And you saw the gentle side of Al Snow towards the end of the show. So to me, that was always the good balance there of being tough, but then in the end, showing that it's all just to help these guys. Where with DeMott, it seemed like, he got this position and then ego trip just went through the roof. His ego went sky high and he thought he was untouchable and could do anything he want and just berate these kids and beat them up, and it's just stupid. And like I said, for this isn't William Regal or even Albert, who's toured all over the world, who's been to Japan, has had a better run in WWE than Bill DeMott ever had. It never made sense to me why this guy was able to get away with all these things. And true or not true, early on, I would have moved on from the beginning, just so he didn't have to deal with all this. Because to me, he wasn't a guy that was worth keeping around. Who was he really producing out of developmental from scratch that was his big thing? So. I always thought it was a waste of time having this guy, and I thought that there was plenty of other people they could have put into that position that could have had probably a lot more success. And from the things you hear, it already sounds like even this current group of NXT are kind of relieved and are full of joy that he's gone. So what does that tell you? That even guys today are happy to see him leave.
Yeah, and there are a ton of people. There was a story about Billy Gunn maybe taking over this role. Norman Smiley is a trainer in NXT. I know Terry Taylor is involved there. Sarah Del Rey is the female trainer. So there's a lot of really good, successful people down in NXT. And I can understand, there are some times where a guy maybe wasn't a great player in his sport, but he goes on to be able to do really well behind the scenes or whatever. But DeMott, the success of NXT has had very little to do with Bill DeMott, and has had to do with the talent that they've brought in and the booking of NXT. And there are plenty of people who are going to be tough enough, to coin a phrase, but without being ridiculous or getting the company into some serious trouble. And I would love to have been a fly on the wall when DeMott had to go talk to Hunter about this, because this would have been a situation where he wouldn't have been talking to Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He would have been talking to Paul Levesque, and Paul Levesque would have had his corporate hat on, not the character he plays, but his actual corporate hat, and discuss this. So it's definitely the right thing to do, and it's been a long time coming. Lots of people had tweeted out about this, and Dr. Tom Pritchard put a story out there about Zack Ryder that was pretty embarrassing. Even Colt Cabana had tweeted that this was a win for the good guys, Joey Ryan, Trent Beretta, and lots of the people who had come into NXT or had tryouts with NXT and had terrible experiences. I know Joey Ryan has said more than once that DeMott said something like, the worst guy in WWE is better than anything in the indie, something like that. So that's always sort of stuck with you, and it's the right thing to do. Speaking of doing the right thing, will Brock Lesnar be unifying the WWE and UFC heavyweight titles sometime in 2015? Because that's what Paul Heyman has put out there, and I think we've gotten to a point that at the main event of WrestleMania Silicon Valley, that more people would rather see Paul Heyman cut a 25-minute promo than see Brock Lesnar face Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman is the most interesting thing in this entire feud.
Killing it. Tweeted that the day after the Rumble, if that's what would happen.
It's only led to the belief that the only thing that can possibly save this is for him to become Roman Reigns' mouthpiece and for Roman Reigns to turn heel, quote unquote, at WrestleMania. And then, of course, we're going to reenact WrestleMania 9. And I have proposed to you that Bryan would come out and help Lesnar, and Bryan would be the Hogan, and Lesnar would be the Bret Hart. However, I will also accept Hogan being the Hogan and coming out. And it would be great for the company and for tomorrow for Hogan to come out and beat Roman Reigns in 9 seconds. I think that that's perfectly reasonable. But how are you looking forward to the main event, not Paul Heyman's promos leading to the main event, because Paul can only do so much. He may have to call the match from ringside, but how are you looking forward to Lesnar versus Reigns?
I'm really not sure at all, actually. I don't know what I want to see happen, what I think is going to happen. I mean, what I think is going to happen is Reigns winning the title. I think that's a safe bet, but you still got the Rollins equation and all this, and like I said, I just don't know. I don't know what to think of how this match is going to go, how the crowd is going to react to this match. I mean, you know that during Mania you get a lot of the European crowd comes over and they're pretty rowdy, and you get a lot of the smarks come out. So you would think that Reigns is going to get booed, I think, pretty hard, and Lesnar is going to be the face in this thing. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, as for the match itself, we know how it's going to go for the most part. We know Lesnar's going to dominate for a good chunk of the match. Roman's going to get his comeback, and then Lesnar's going to cut him off again until Roman finally gets his big comeback and gets the win. But I do think that the right idea would be to turn him heel, just roll with it, put him with Heyman.